He warned my relatives, the hospital administrator tried to stop him, that I didn't see. That was the story told later, okay? I saw my body, I knew when they were touching me it wasn't all the time. When they took me to the ambulance, when they put me in the ambulance, then he went to the key room and said, "I'll go." And he drove. Then he asked the nurses, who presented themselves to help him, under penalty of being fired, right? One of the nurses, Irene, whom I am very grateful to, I never saw her again. But I'm very grateful. Irene went, and an uncle of mine who had nursing knowledge held the drip, and he drove the ambulance and took me to this other hospital. In this hospital where I went, then I was in a declared coma. It was a coma, a real coma. For in the afternoon, it was already midnight. Then, when I arrived, my father already too shaken because of my mother's death. When the ambulance arrived, I didn't wake up from above. I woke up, I opened my eyes, I spoke to him, I said, "Don't cry." My father was very desperate. "Don't cry because I'm not going to die." I spoke with such certainty. He said it was impressive, the certainty, the way I spoke. And I blacked out again. I went into a coma again. And then I was taken straight to the operating room. They were waiting for me there. At that moment I watched the procedures. When they cut my dress, my clothes couldn't be removed. The clothes were cut. I watched all of this. I remember vividly them cutting my clothes, taking all that off, preparing me. When they passed me, when they cleaned me, all of that I watched. Suddenly I went up. I speak of a tunnel, maybe influenced by the reports I've heard, but it can only be a tunnel like we know here, because it seemed like I was sucked in. It wasn't violently, nothing, no. I went up to a place. People attributed it to a tunnel. I didn't see a wall, I didn't see anything, okay? But you go up, you understand? And that's what happened to me. I felt like I went up in that tunnel, and then I arrived in a beautiful place, a wonderful place, very bright detail, that it was a brightness, a light that didn't dazzle like here on earth, like the light here on earth. And it was immense, but it was immense. If there's heaven, that place was heaven. It was immense, everything was very big, everything immense, everything very big. There was a door. There was a huge oval door. Everything was disproportionate to what we know here, okay? There was a huge oval door and it was ajar. And I could see inside. Inside there were thousands. It was infinite. I remember there were, or with those 3 doctors. I have experience. At a certain moment in my life, when I was already in my 30s, I suffered a domestic accident and had a terrible, terrible pain. I would have to be taken to the hospital. I fell and hit a surface, and it hurt me. It was in the spine, and it was a terrible pain. I asked them to sit me down, and for the first and only time I communicated, I said a prayer. I asked them. They took care of me at that time, and to take care of me at that moment, I would have to raise my children. Nothing serious could happen to me. And then I felt for 20 minutes a tingling sensation of about 40 centimeters, almost 40 centimeters at the site. I felt about 20 minutes of tingling. When it ended, when it passed, I had nothing. I didn't take any pain medication. But there's also a feeling that there's also a communication. It's not a communication. I don't talk to anyone. I don't always. It's a premonition, but in everything. This became very clear throughout my life. I became much less afraid of events, of things that could happen, because I always consult. My God, it's going to happen. I always attribute it to God. My faith in God is very strong. And I always attributed all these moments that I went through in my life as a gift from God. It's our understanding here on earth, so I always understood that. I always saw it. But funny enough, I always saw it in this place, if something is going to happen or not. Did you feel your return to the body? No, when I woke up it was different. I realized that I was in another place. I realized that I had arrived here. When I woke up, it was very sad. It was very melancholic, a feeling of melancholy, of sadness, because you came back? Yes. Then I'll tell you again, I always liked life, I like life, but at that moment the return was heavy. Then I came back. The weight of life. And it was melancholic, it was sad, so much so that I told the doctor right away when I woke up. When you were there, both in the hospital and in that other place, could you see all around you without needing to turn your body or not? Think so. Because I had a bigger, expanded spatial awareness. Spatial awareness. Because everything was so big. How did I have the awareness to see all that? How could I, fear of death? None. It's over. Zero. Impressive. From that moment on, what do we do here? I think it's a learning experience. I understand it as a learning experience. Why did I have to come back? I have a son who likes to study a lot. He's autistic and thank God he overcame everything. We overcame when there was no diagnosis. We overcame everything. He's a special soul, which I think is a special soul. Not that my daughter isn't, she is too, but they both like to study a lot and I always had. My house, if I show you, is a laboratory I've never seen because I try everything, I do everything. In the arts I painted, there's a painting that maybe. Now there's no possibility. My daughter is doing a major renovation and this painting stayed with my daughter. I was preparing a canvas, and it's very interesting. Later I'll send you a photo of this canvas. Then a cousin of mine saw and asked, "What are you doing?" The cousin, Stop, don't do anything else, don't touch. And I couldn't see. I was preparing the canvas. My God, when I saw. So much so that it's not finished, it doesn't have an outline, it's not finished, I really stopped. She said, "Don't touch anything else." It was a light, precisely that light. I didn't do. God knows. It wasn't intentional. My cousin is alive, she lives in Italy and she's crazy about this painting and she can give her testimony, you know? It was her who made me stop painting. It was the light from up there, which was the light I was making. Light, and we always work, right, with light and shadow, right? So I made the light, only the light stayed in the middle and several souls going up. I'll send you a photo of this, okay? And several souls walking towards that light. And there's a very strange being. Because it had to be drawn with a brush and I didn't do that, nothing was intentional, I was preparing the canvas. And then there's a being fallen like that, he's fallen like that on the ground, a man, and looking like that at the light from the ground looking. It's impressive. I never touched anything again. The painter who paints, we become even annoying because we go there and do and undo, the painting is never good, right? We become annoying because the painting never ends. I never touched anything again. When you say you were preparing the canvas, that means consciously you hadn't painted that beam of light or the people going up. No form. No, I was preparing the light and the dark. And the shadow, light and shadow. Preparing a place where I was going to put the light, which was the sky, and I was going to work on a landscape, okay? And the earth, I chose an ochre brown. To work on the bottom, the shadow part, that's what I did. I wasn't aware of what I did. And how do you interpret that today? It was exactly what I experienced. It's impressive. What message do you have for all of us? The message is that there's much more beyond what we live here. There's much more. There's much more to be lived. There's much more. And that people shouldn't fear death, fundamentally don't fear death. I think it's just another stage that we're going to live. We're going through. That's my understanding from that moment on. And if someone is in pain, don't cry for that person. Live that moment as a contribution to improve the person. Not that lamentation. I think lamentation harms a lot. Some feelings really harm. I've already mentioned before, right, about the feeling I had. So don't fear death, and live fully what is given to us. Fundamentally, don't be afraid, don't fear death. Fundamentally, don't fear death. There's much more, but much more beyond this life here, this earthly life, this heavy suffering life, there's much more. I learned. That was the great learning from this experience. That there's much more after death. If you liked it, please subscribe to our channel.